Welcome to the Wolf and Wolf podcast. I am your friendly neighborhood wolf. And with me, I have...
The bull is in the house.
It's getting really good. It's like precise right on it. And additionally, we also have the lovely, the wonderful, the forever Gaelic and or Irish, but in American citizen form, Baewolf.
That's me. Hello. I'm back again. I just keep coming on back.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Oh.
You're just...
like a slight Irish accent going on there?
No.
No?
That was my,
How about now?
That was my Southern California Valley Girl accent that just can't help but peek its head over.
Irish Valley.
Yeah.
Irish Valley.
Good old Ireland. How is everyone this week?
Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Are we related?
Yeah. That was
Is that like the exact same words at the exact same time?
beautiful cadence is what that was.
No, I'm doing okay. I think I've had enough coffee today to basically feed a small army. Feed.
Same. Yeah, same. I
Replenish. Not feed.
replenish.
Coffee. I drank the coffee. I did not eat the coffee.
An army powered by coffee.
Is that what they did in the army and the Marines and stuff? They just like fed coffee to
No,
the
they
soldiers
pumped
in the
them with
foxholes?
drugs.
Meth. Specifically meth.
Coffee.
Caffeine
which is
was-
my drug of choice.
Which, by the way, let's be careful. Remember, YouTube is now an authoritarian Protestant company, so we cannot say anything negative
I have
for
no
the sake
say?
of being banned.
Coffee
we
is
said
my drug of
drugs.
choice?
You said the word drug.
I'm sorry.
And
I
swear.
I do not have a problem not swearing, and I will no longer mention such things, such as
Beowulf lives a pious life
out in
the Irish Highlands. Scottish Highlands? Uh-oh.
Irish.
I confused it. The Scottish Highlands.
wow. You know what? That's sacrilegious. You don't.
Yeah, it is.
You don't mix
I
up
think you're
Scottish and Irish things.
inappropriately appropriating the wrong British Isle.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You select the Isles
Listen,
properly.
Yeah, I
we're
made a
just
mistake.
I'm
we're
sorry.
just
I'm deeply-
American.
Deeply apologetic.
Yeah, I was going to say, all we have to do is say, oh, well, we're American.
Listen, we're
everybody,
American.
Everybody goes, oh, yeah. Well,
And they're like, okay, you get a pass. You get a pass.
We're just idiots. That's literally what you could say.
The French watching right now or listening right now have already said that.
Yeah, of course they have. They say they would, of course. Oh, wow. Okay, well, everyone's good. Yeah, Beowulf is Irish, American. The bull is Irish, American. I'm Irish,
A little bit
American.
of Iberian Peninsula thrown in there, according to 1, 2, 3 and
23andMe.
me, 1, 2, 4. And
We're basically just
mutts.
European mutts.
Mutts, that's
You
right.
know what? Well,
I just know a bunch of people's lives are going to be absolutely destroyed. Their identities, their lives will be destroyed if all of that data and information is somehow incorrect.
listen, just don't commit any murders because then they're going to run your DNA through the databases at this 23andMe and they're going to connect
Well, I
you
think
through with
they've-
your
I think
second
they've-
cousin, and then
Don't they actually do that for sure? Don't they?
that's
have
how
a
they
relationship
caught the
with
Golden State Killer.
Yeah, but how did they get would they had to subpoena the records for the DNA to get
He
that?
kept licking the envelopes of the
Damn
letters
it.
he sent to the
That's why you
police.
buy the ones with the little strip to pull off.
Wait,
of.
did
didn't know
you
they
read?
existed.
Did you read the fine print when you did the DNA?
Does anybody
stuff?
read the frying pan?
Frying pint?
Yes, I've had a
Listen.
pint already.
As we've talked about conspiracy theories recently, there are some that say that you're being cloned right now in some underground mountain where the data from those DNA things are.
Trust me, they
being
took one look
stored.
at my.
That was really a lot of words
That
in
was-
one run-on sentence.
That was.
The things I had done of the day
clonage.
that I did those things, I did those things that I
I'm
done.
hoping if they do clone me, they put those like giant metal titanium wolf. They're wolf things, though.
That's appropriation. There's a different word.
Well, yeah, but you're the wolf. I'm
it's
the bull.
appropriation.
Instead of hooves, I want those from Wolfman. not
Appendages.
Wolfman.
Wolverine?
X-Man. Wolverine. Thank
This
you.
guy over here, right up here in the corner, that guy right there. Yeah,
That guy right
Yeah,
there.
you guys probably can't see it. It's my special. That's what I call it. I'm like it's my
Special
special.
comic book.
I'm like Gollum.
Which of those characters in that world?
Wolverine.
That's who you want to be.
Who doesn't want to be huge Stackman? Like, by the way, I've watched interviews where he's like, I'm totally natural.
Ooh, hot take.
That's if you include nature as in everything ever.
Look, I don't mean that he's taken like. I
But hey,
don't mean
you
that he's
saw him
taken
in Les Mis,
PEDs.
though, right? You
I
saw him
did,
in Les
yeah.
Mis. That proved to me
Would you cry?
that he.
Did you cry? Did you tear up?
I bawl.
Wolverine, actually.
I bawl
did.
my face off every time I watch that.
Well, the Les Mis is the best.
Look, huge Stackman is my third out of 3 favorite actors. Okay.
Who's the first two?
Hugh Jackman and then Hugh
Stackman.
Stackman.
Oh.
So there's Huge Stackman, then there's Hugh
they're all-
Stackman.
okay.
It's all the same
guy.
individual, just in different
No, they're
formats.
just clones of one another,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, just
And Chris Hemsworth's pretty cool too. You know,
well, I'm
not a big, huge fan of the latest Thor, but that's just because it was so incredibly 80s. I feel like it's kind of played out. You know,
well. You're such big fans of X-Men. What else are you a fan of?
I'm a fan of love. No, there's a lot of stuff I'm a fan of. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of like Marvel's okay. I think Marvel's kind of running its course.
I don't think so. I think that universe
They're
is
going to keep making
expanding
it.
and contracting depending on whether you're watching the multiverse or the
Look,
antiverse or whatever the Ant-Man is going to
it's
do with the Wasp.
expanding, but the writing is contracting. If you get my drift.
But they don't have to. All they do is pump it into an AI and pull out a formula and turn. You know what they're going to do with all this stuff, though? All they're going to do is turn it into one universe and put it into games. That's what they're going to do. Just turn them right into games.
Yeah, they already do that.
All of it. I mean,
Yeah,
one
for like
after
a
another.
meta.
Every single character is going to
So you can play.
Here's the thing.
online in a whole universe.
They've already done that. It's called WoW. They in a different way, but they have done like
Meta.
superhero.
But I know what you're
World of
saying.
Warcraft.
Like they've done World of Warcraft, and then they've done like a
I was going to say you got
superhero
to
one.
not throw these
Sorry,
anagrams.
anagrams. That's satanic.
Well, actually, wow.
Let's pretend that this
Pentagrams.
episode is for every baby boomer out
This
there.
episode is for every baby boomer out there.
WoW is both an anagram, not an anagram. It's a, what am I thinking?
I don't know what you're thinking of. I know what you're thinking of, but I don't remember what it
It's
is,
a-
so I
it's
can't
a-
know.
An acronym for
It's an
World
acronym,
of Warcraft.
but it's all, acronym was what I was going for. I was trying to
Anagram.
But it's also a palindrome at the same time. How about that?
Wow, just like race car.
Yeah, so I think it would be probably good to jump into the episode that is specifically made for you. This is for you.
The baby boomer.
I have terrible news. It's the worst possible news, and it's news for us. It's news for you, but it is not news for those of you and the rest of society who suffer from the same affliction. Baewolf and I have a very nasty addiction. We can't help ourselves. We stay awake till 2 a.m. on the weekends, then we wake up at 10 a.m. to go to the gym. It's a very terrible and dysfunctional Sigma Alpha Epsilon lifestyle, and we have lived it quite recently. It's not sustainable. It's bad for your psyche, and Baewolf and I are suffering. See, we're addicted to Stardew Valley. We can't stop farming. We can't stop foraging. We can't stop murdering slimes, bugs, grubs, rock crabs, duggies, bats, stone golems, ghosts, dust sprites, shadow brutes, shadow shaman, and squid kids. Our community center is almost complete. We're missing the red snapper. Pam is an alcoholic. She's a failure, but we still feed her addiction with gifts of pale ale and beer. Haley is the worst, and Abigail is an absolute snob. What I'm trying to say is that this is a cry for help, one that has caused me to think about why we as humans are so engaged in escapism very heavily. Is it out of fear, loneliness, desired sense of belonging, boredom? That is why Baewolf has decided unilaterally of her own volition, this was not my decision, to create an entire episode on Stardew Valley, our addiction to escapism. Just gonna keep this going in the background indefinitely.
I'm so excited right now.
You have a problem.
And listen, if you're someone who is saying, huh? What? We're doing an episode on a farm simulation? Yes.
Think of this as a metaphor for existence, life, love.
I guess the real basis of this episode is going to be escapism via video games, but it was born of our addiction to Stardew Valley.
I'm just going to sit here with my jaw dropped because
Oh, you're better than us? Is that what you're saying?
that too, but that's beside the point. Oh,
You're not.
some groovy
Okay.
music.
This right here?
Oh, yeah. What
This
is
is
it from?
music.
What is it from?
Oh, it's
Every game
It's
ever.
not from
during-
anything.
So-
This is from storyblocks.com. We have the rights to
We
this
pay for
music.
the license.
We pay for the
But
license.
what is, here's the problem. Here's the problem with this. And I'm
Listen
sure
to
you're
this.
going to dive into this. I thought you were going to dab there for a second.
You thought?
Yeah, I did.
That's too long ago. It's no longer pop
long
culture
ago.
relevant. Anyway, What were you going to say? Yeah, you like this? You like this music? Yeah.
Who doesn't like that? I mean, I think of, an arcade, going in and sitting down on a little table and playing some Pac-Man going on. Or better yet, my favorite of all time, two favorites. I could never decide between Galaga or Asteroids.
Well, save that.
Same game.
Save that for later.
It was awesome. Asteroids. It was like playing frickin' tennis, man. By the time you were flying around, you sweat flying around.
I can't decide
blowing up
between
stupid little
mini wheats and frosted mini wheats.
Both are delicious. But save that for later, because I actually want to get your opinion on that, because you're sort of from that era.
I had Pong. Okay?
Well, yes, but
Pong.
that birth of
Not ping
video
pong.
games and like arcades and bowling alleys and stuff like that. Like, I want to get your opinion on that.
That was the best.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're in a different age now. While those still exist, it's different.
Well, I just want to make it abundantly clear. I'm passing, not forever, the helm of this episode to you.
To me.
So go ahead.
Oh, I'm not even the wolf or the bull, and I'm taking over. It's time.
As we knew would happen sooner or later.
No. This won't be happening forever, guys. But we're
going to leave now.
This is a topic I am quite passionate about, so I'm excited.
I'm turning the music down.
For everyone listening and watching, if you do not know what Stardew Valley is, do not worry. I am going to give you a rundown so that you can approach this topic from the same position we have.
Well, can we preface this seriously first? Look,
Helm restricted, apparently.
the Wolf and Wolf podcast has been very serious as of late. We've been very serious. We've been very serious with our discussions and our topics, and we will continue to be serious. But this right here, this is a palate cleanser, not of nonsense, but
Actually,
of joy, of happiness.
You could dig into some serious social concepts with this.
Well, yeah, don't.
We're going to, but
don't
it's
get
not,
ahead of yourself, because
Well,
there's a very dark part of this later on.
Look. We've talked about assassinations, okay? So
We're not going too far off that map down the road. Apparently, someone did not review the notes too in depth.
I didn't read the notes.
Yes, we will continue forward with. This is a lighter topic for the most part, but yes, there are. We will mention something that is a little dark later on.
Your
but for the
incompetence
most
at
part,
fishing?
No.
Yes.
Let me just put it this way. We're approaching this topic, at least from the perspective of Wolf and I, as big fans of video games. I know you've mentioned that you like video games as well. Maybe not Stardew Valley or some of the other ones we've talked about because you haven't played them. But
Bo likes chess.
You know what?
40.
Chess Online is great.
It
You
is.
consider
I'm
that a
not
video game?
saying it's a statement. It's a true one.
I just want to
do
preface
too.
that we're approaching this as big fans of video games. So whatever we say, we are still big fans of video games, regardless.
You a solitaire
Okay.
guy?
No.
No. Never figured that out. Never really understood.
Solitaire's, it's fine. I've just never liked playing alone.
Yeah. That's sad.
So what is Stardew Valley? Okay.
It's a good question.
Stardew Valley is a farming simulation and RPG game that was developed by ConcernedApe and published by Chucklefish. That is how we're
That's-
starting this off.
That sentence.
I love the names of the production company. And ConcernedApe, by the way, just if you have a Spotify account, or even if you don't, just look up the music from this thing. It's amazing. ConcernedApe, one word. It's fantastic. The music from this game is great. You guys are you're laughing at me.
No.
But I told you I was passionate about this.
Ape.
You know what's funny is if you had said that sentence in any other time period, people would have thrown you out a window.
You know what we need to do? We need to chisel that on like a rock and then bury the rock. And then hundreds of years from now, someone's going to bring that rock up and say, they must have worshipped ConcernedApe and Chucklefish,
I'm
the
telling
gods.
you, all those kind of wild ass names and things that came out over the years, I think they originally came from bands and things.
They did.
Like Smashing Pumpkins and all the different,
Yeah, sorry guys. Our neighbors are now flying F-15 Tomcats.
There's like a big airplane.
Yeah, they're
That was
flying
an airplane.
F-15 Tomcats
sorry.
across the sky.
No,
they
that's
took out their
just-
garbage.
They were
on
just
Tuesdays.
dropping a package in Stardew Valley.
Yeah, it was Amazon flying
Right.
above us. Interesting side note. You brought that up. Civilizations. Mm-hmm. You did. You didn't. You did. Then you commentated on it. I'm commentating on both of this. Anyway, I was watching something today from the Y-Files, which is a very phenomenal YouTube channel. Y-Files, shout out, you rock. He was talking about how there is a particular book, and it's called Adam and Eve, and it's not the Bible, and it talks about how the poles shift, and that certain like civilizations, like I don't know if you've ever heard of Mu civilization, supposed to be in the middle of the Pacific, how because of the polar shifts and the magnetic changes, that over time, this book basically said that every 6,000 or so years, the poles and the magnetic things, they like all that shifts. I'm really doing a terrible job describing this.
Yeah,
and it destroyed certain civilizations. Yeah. And it's fascinating, and we need to talk about this because it was fascinating.
Let's save it for next time.
I just wanted to point it out because you brought up the rock.
People in the looking at the geologic record can see evidence of these kind of things way beyond 6,000 years. I mean, it's happened multiple times over the history of our planet. All you have to do is look at the iron content in rocks and see in what direction the iron particles are pointing magnetically to see that the poles have shifted over time.
Well, they were talking about how there was a specific. We'll get to Stardew Valley. Do not worry.
Anyone listening to this who saw Stardew Valley is saying,
this is content. Okay, look, this is good. This is good. All I'm saying is just there's a specific area. I believe it's in Africa, Northern Africa, where they think Atlantis may be, quote unquote. Anyway, in that area, there are mounds of rock and sand that are 50 feet high that were caused by a tsunami in Africa.
Cool.
The world is kind of a volatile place and has over its history.
Well, I mean, it'd have to be 1,000-foot tsunami.
Yeah, those have happened. Look up some of these mega volcanoes and things sometimes. But the place in Africa that you're talking about that's, that's near the rift,
it
was actually the designated area for the designers of Stardew Valley.
Oh, we're going back to Stardew Valley.
They really were.
Yeah.
Wasn't that true, Bale?
Yeah.
That's where Chucklefish was born.
That was artfully done.
Chucklefish is the publisher of the game, but
yeah, Chucklefish publisher.
Oh, I thought that
ConcernedApe and Chucklefish are not
Cuttlefish.
characters.
I thought Cuttlefish and Chucklefish.
They're not characters.
A funny cuttlefish is a Chucklefish.
Wow.
And a cuttlefish, of course, is a type of octopi, which a lot of people believe have the same cognitive abilities as human beings. So that's why they call them Chucklefish, because they laugh at us because they know more than we do. They remember the civilization of Mu.
All right.
And you know why I know so much about Mu?
Oh my God, Mew.
No, do you know why I know so much about Mu?
Because you're a bovine.
Because I am, yes.
Yes.
A bull knows how
its
herd can moo.
Wow.
Right.
I have died inside just a little bit. Let's get back to Stardew Valley. Sorry, I just thought it would be interesting. It was a very interesting video. Not that it means it's true. It's just interesting to think and talk about.
Okay.
Back to Stardew Valley and ConcernedApe and Chucklefish.
A farming simulation game.
It is.
Got one sentence in to the explanation before you guys took it on a 5-minute tangent. But in the game, players take on a role of a new farmer, and they inherit an overgrown, rundown farm from their grandfather. And the player's goal is to restore the farm to its former glory while also building relationships with the other residents of Stardew Valley.
Look how happy she got describing that. Like, she went from like sourpuss attitude a second ago to happiness.
Yeah. One of the defining features of Stardew Valley is the wide variety of activities that players can engage in while they're playing the game. And players can plant, they can harvest, they can raise animals like cows. Yes, cows. You heard that. Goats,
My
chickens,
female.
sheep, and they mine for minerals. They can go fishing and you were just mentioning octopi. You can fish for that, and squid and wood skips and
do you just list all the fish off?
Bass.
Yeah, yes. Which one do we need?
Wood skips.
We need the red snapper.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Who made the mistake?
Me.
Yeah,
skipjack. Right.
We finished everything else, only to find. I wanted to do it in the first year, only to find that we needed one fish.
No one knows what we're talking about.
What happens when like the large industrial farmers like Pioneer and those guys come in and try to buy your farm?
This is a fictional world, so that doesn't happen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. There's no eminent domain in this.
The government doesn't come in and say, hey, that's mine. No, you just live in peace and harmony while murdering.
I'm liking this game a lot now. If you can live in peace and harmony.
It's actually more interesting and detailed than you think.
The music is literally like this the entire time. If you were to roll up a J, you'd go to a different world. You know, Joe Rogan probably does this in his spare time when he has spare time every decade.
We're
when he has 1 hour of
this
spare
music
time.
and ayahuasca at the same time.
Probably
the trip you would have. You go on one.
That's probably, Chucklefish probably did that. That's why he came up with the name Stardew Valley.
Well,
ConcernedApe.
Yeah, let's not disrespect ConcernedApe. Okay, he was a part of this. He was a very important part. He's also making Haunted Chocolatier.
Okay.
It's another game. Anyway,
we're sliding all over the place again.
My brain's
reel it in.
Explode.
Reel it in.
Each activity offers different rewards and challenges. For example, planting different crops during different seasons, because they have spring, summer, fall, winter. Almost forgot what fall was. They yield different resources. Fishing requires different techniques and strategies and equipment. And each NPC, for those who are not aware,
something character.
Playable character.
Non-playable character. So they just...
Yeah, basically. They have their own schedule, their own likes and dislikes in the game, and players can give them gifts, talk to them, build their friendships, and building friendships with these NPCs can lead to new items, quests. You can even build a romantic relationship. You can date them. You can date multiple. You can marry them. I'm currently on a mission to marry... well, I don't think you can marry
They don't
him,
have consent.
But I want to be housemates with this little thing that lives in the sewer called...
Krobus.
See, we're spiraling again. We need to keep it on track. Keep it on track.
I think there ought to be, maybe a character that could become a lawyer and get on the side of these NPCs and try to, kind of advocate for them. Get them a little play as non-players.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Straight to jail. Straight to jail. You go to jail.
This game also
terrible. That was terrible.
Offers a variety of events throughout the year, such as festivals and birthdays, and players can participate in these to get rewards, to build relationships throughout the valley. And as players progress through the game, they can upgrade their tools and unlock new areas. It feels never ending. And now, we're also playing the game at the same time because they have this robust multiplayer mode where you can collaborate and do things daily. Like, for example, on our farm, we have a giant barn with cows and sheep and goats in it.
And I name all the animals inappropriate names that I will not repeat for sake of being censored by Google.
Thank God.
And YouTube.
Yeah, so
It's
will
hilarious.
go, for example, I'll go milk the cows to put them in our little machine that creates cheese. And then he will go, harvest the crops. It's very basic on that level, but it's also, oh my gosh.
I thought that would be
not
the donkey.
Reveal our
I'm pretty creative with my names.
All in all, it's a very charming and engaging and just very relaxing game that offers a wide variety of activities to do. And after a long, challenging day of work, I'm in the corporate world. He's in, all doing all of his business stuff. That sounded horrible.
That segue.
I'm in the corporate world, and he does his business stuff. You make me sound like I'm slinging drugs, dude. Like, he does this. Yeah. What's your occupation? I do business. I business. That's what I do in my spare time. I do business.
I just meant self-employed, and I'm not. So
kind of.
I have to answer to someone.
Yeah.
Just what I'm saying is at the end of a long day, sometimes it's nice to just sit on the couch and then we will just unwind with this very simple game.
Hey. Have you traced the money back on this yet? Who developed this?
This is one of the most popular games.
Yeah, but why?
Why did they develop it?
Well, number one, why do people play
it? Seems to be a passion project of ConcernedApe.
Okay, wait a second. Wait, pause. Wait a second. No. No. I'm going to defend
Stardew?
both. Yes. You can't say that and be like, but Stephen King writes his books because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It is.
No. Well, if you're talking about the psychological affect of escapism.
Same thing.
It's certainly the same there.
Yes.
Now, how it's designed and how, if you're looking at a book and there are letters on it, you look at one book, you open a book and you open another book, unless you're reading the words, all the books look the same. They're just a bunch of words on a page. So your imagination has to be the driver for your escapism in those effects. And now the content of those books, what is trying to elicit from you, whether from sonnets or whether it's from narrative or first person, third person, whatever the case may be, that drives your escapism. In the case of Stardew, you've got visual affect, you've got audio affect, you've got underpinning probable subliminal
probable
affect.
Cause.
What?
Underpinning probable cause.
Yeah, possibly. So you've got a whole different series of things that are, it's not passive.
I don't know if I agree with that entirely. I don't think it's fully. Look, I don't mean like I don't agree outright. I mean, like there's some of it. I think that people end up in certain ways through entertainment creating their own narratives, and Stardew Valley in a lot of ways is one of those games. There is a side narrative, much like with the book I'm reading right now, Ghost Stories by Peter Straub. Great book. There is a side narrative, and in the instance of a book, obviously the full narrative is there through reading and the literary aspects. With that being said, the side narrative is to finish the chapter and get through the end of the story. It's the same thing with Stardew Valley. That's how I view it. I think it's very
I
similar.
don't disagree that it's a different form of an underpinning desire for all of us to be both entertained and to escape whatever version of reality we either have a problem with or want to get some escapism from. So I agree with that, certainly. And it's probably more robust, certainly more entertaining. It's not a lot different than clicking on some streaming service and falling into that for hours on a couch. So I don't blame anybody for it, but there's something more going on here. Maybe we delve into it in the notes. I don't know.
A crippling addiction to...
No, it's not what I mean.
Musical,
I mean, think about
games.
about what we believe. This is a different direction, but like children's television shows over the years or over the 50-year span, if you looked at different shows and you looked at how they were doing and why they were doing different things, and you have to kind of question, why that happens. Well, I do the same thing with games. There are all kinds of games we could talk about. Stardew is just one of them, and it's a little easier to digest than a lot of the games out there, certainly, I'm sure. But there's got to be, and maybe I'm looking for a conspiracy in every corner, I don't know, but this is just not some innocuous thing. There's a formula involved in getting people's attention and capturing it in develop. So this concept of another world, another reality is what I'm getting to here. And it bridges a gap between all the negatives that we're surrounding ourselves with all the time and where we want to go. Maybe for someone like me, if I played it, which I've never played it, it would be like, oh, this is nostalgic because I grew up on a farm, right? So, hey, I know how to fish. The first thing I think of is when you mentioned the fishing thing is the times my brother and I used to jump on our bicycles, head down to, miles away to a railroad crossing, put our bikes in the bushes to hide them and walk back and wade into the streams and catch fish all day. That's where I go with it. You guys don't have that.
Yeah, because the fish are all dead. Because Greta told me so. They're all dead. So we don't have any fish.
There are more fish alive now than when I was a kid. Trust me.
Anyway,
it's a fact.
Here's the thing: is I think that there is a difference between because there are different forms of escapism. Like
well, we're gonna get into the different types.
Yeah,
there definitely are.
Yeah. I don't want to go off the path too much, so go ahead and talk. I'm just giving you kind of a layer as to the way I think about these.
Well, why are you addicted to Stardew Valley?
I actually wouldn't say I'm addicted. That was just sort of a form of speech. In the true definition of addicted, I would not say that I fall into that
I wouldn't say I'm in there either.
No, okay. You're being
honest. What are you going to do tonight
to
after this?
What? No.
What are you going to do tonight?
I have to actually work. I'm going to be working for our other podcast.
Your business stuff?
My business stuff, yeah. It involves shadowy alleyways and there's some illicit material. No, I have to finish something for another show.
Stardew.
That's a code word. I guess my point is I think there's different forms of escapism. And if we're going to talk about like all these ethereal senses of like outside of the addiction things, but like creating your own world and creating your own story. I mean, we could take that in an area that's weird as hell because we don't know much about, we know a lot about the human mind, but we don't know everything about the human mind. And there's, I mean, I've always wondered like, what if like your internalized ideas or the things that you narrate within yourself, like what if they have the same effects that some people believe dreams have? You know what I'm saying? Like the weirdness that people believe behind dreams, like you're going into another dimension and like that type of thing.
If you do certain things over and over in repetition, like this game obviously allows you to do to build up something, in some ways that's a very positive thing, right? Yeah. It's teaching you the basics of you must do a lot of little things to gain this bigger thing over here in the future. So it's not instant gratification in that way. Mm-hmm. It might be for catching the sand crab or whatever the one you're missing, Trapper or John.
We're missing the wood snapper or the red snapper.
Whatever it is. That might be fun in the instant, but there's a bigger picture. And I think that is a good lesson overall. Mm-hmm. But there's something else going on here. And in this whole idea that we're expanding the internet to version 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is over in the future, and how it's not just utilizing goggles for a metaverse or a virtual reality, but there's another term for when if you're wearing glasses or something right now that you could actually see the reality around you, but other things pop up.
Augmented reality.
That's where I see this stuff kind of heading myself.
We've been talking about escapism a lot, so let's just kind of put a definition on it, and then we'll lean into the further definition?
The further? What are we talking about? Like
that sounds like the upside.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
You know what? That's a great name for
further.
I'm taking it. No one touch that. I demand it. The further.
No one like that. That would go well with the book you.
I know. If anyone steals it, I'm suing.
That's what you should call that weird.
This will be used in court. This episode, Stardew Valley episode.
I thought of
probably already been used.
I'm going to use it in my book first. You better hurry and finish your book.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Escapism.
I mean, you said it.
But I captured the notion.
We both thought the same thing at the same time.
I verbalized it.
You did.
You thought it
but
after
I give you credit for the jokes that I end. So...
Escapism. It refers to the act of withdrawing from reality or everyday life by engaging in activities or hobbies that allow one to escape mentally or physically. So we're talking, like you've mentioned, reading. You were talking about Stephen King, watching movies, TV, playing sports even, and of course, as we're focusing on today, video games. And escapism can actually be healthy when it's done in moderation. It can provide temporary respite from stress, a chance to relax and unwind, but done excessively or in place of addressing your real life problems, that's when it becomes a problematic issue and can be referred to as maladaptive escapism.
My escapism is business.
I'm never going to live that one down.
Business stuff. I'm doing business stuff.
I'm corporate and you're doing your business thing.
You're in corporate. I'm in business stuff.
You know, there is again a very positive aspect to some of what you just mentioned as far as, you know, people need to decompress.
Yeah.
You know, there's expectations laid upon people in the corporate world and maybe by themselves in the business
world, you know, this business, all of it around me at all times.
Busy business.
Business.
I'm a businessman.
Business.
Oh my God. I'd
be something else.
I need to find like a pun audio effect for him.
Anyway, decompressing is always a great thing. Back in the day when you were in your youth, your younger corporate days, and you were going an hour in each direction to the office. Mm-hmm. There is something to be said for decompressing to or from work. Right. Usually going to work, you're kind of revving yourself up in one way or another. But coming home, oftentimes you were, you know, I'm not trying to place words in your head, but you would shun some of the things that you were thinking about to try to get you in a frame of mind that would develop a better ability to do things off work hours that have nothing to do with that. And decompressing is a part of that. Now we're in a different kind of world where a lot of people are working or doing their biz from home,
Business work.
business stuff,
Business.
and so this is a different kind of decompression.
Yeah.
Streaming, reading, video gaming.
As a businessman in the industry of business, I would tend to align myself with the business of business in businessing the business of listening to corporate talk from a fellow corporate, not business person.
Totally different.
Yeah, you like that sentence. I think the interesting thing to me is where's that line of, because I see people checked out all the time.
Probably different for everybody, right? The line.
Maybe. If that were the case, then I don't think there would be so much algorithmic stuff to everything. I think a lot of it is obviously a numbers game, but you think about it with popularity of certain songs and certain books, there's an algorithm. I mean, songs, I don't know if you guys ever saw the clip of Ed Sheeran playing like every song with the same four chords.
Yeah.
So I think there's a psychological aspect to it of like, where is that threshold of being so involved in daily life and then disappearing into something that doesn't exist.
Isn't that how these games even work though? It's like you can talk about this same strategy in anything from games to books to songs to heck, food stuff or different types of pharmaceuticals. There's always a generic level first. The entry level is what is most common amongst the crowd I'm trying to sell my thing to. Game, pharmaceutical, food, whatever. So there's this commonality that allows it to be sold to the most people that want this. It's like going to restaurants. If you go to an Italian restaurant, the really good ones have a variety of different spices and different things they use for sauces, et cetera, et cetera.
Olive Garden.
I wasn't going to use them as an example, but if you go to a generic place, the sauce is the same, man. And it's the same because it's got a flavor profile that a majority of people will be okay with.
Yeah.
But over time, if you want to get better and better at things, and games is what we're talking about today, it's got to be more defined. It's got to be steered to the individual. How do you do that? You create more detail.
Well, you also do that with like big data and analytics as well.
Same thing.
So it's predictive in nature, especially when it comes to this AI thing you mentioned a little bit ago. So I guess my whole question is like, I think for everyone there is a threshold of when it's healthy and then it's not healthy. Granted, yes, Baewolf and I have stayed up till 2 a.m. and then woken up at 10 and gone to the gym, but that has not been every night. That is one. Let's put it this way: we did that. And then we got back from the gym and we looked at each other and we said, "Dear God, what have we done?" That's literally what we did. So we've tapered things down, but I don't know. I think there's like a large subset of society, which is not a criticism, but a large subset of society that kind of trickles very easily into that escapism nature. And then that escapism thing becomes their existence.
Well, why do people even play video games to escape? Right? The one main reason probably is that people gravitate towards something that escapes their everyday pressures, which I think we're all familiar with. I think everyone can pretty much agree there's a lot of everyday pressures going on in the world.
Which color black shirt should I pick?
Yes. The difficult decision every morning for you. Video games provide a way to step away from, whatever reality or responsibility you just need to put aside for now, right? And that can be the same again with books and streaming services and just your general.
Is that escapism or avoidance? That's the question.
Well, it depends on how you use it. It's all it depends. That's our motto for today's episode.
I think that question is redundant. I think it's the same. I think avoidance and escapism are on the same coin.
No, I don't think so at all, because there are times when I know my responsibilities. I know their deadlines. I know that I'm going to get them done, and I need a break from them, and I would need to escape from them. Not trying to avoid them. Oftentimes, I'm doing something else to kind of recalibrate because I've been thinking about whatever those things are so much.
Sometimes you can just step away in order to do your best work.
Here's the thing. I want to clarify. I'm not putting a negative connotation. I think that
I am on the avoidance.
I'm not. I think that I think avoiding something and escaping from something is literally the same thing.
I don't agree. I mean, semantically, perhaps.
Semantically. So when it comes to, because look, there's always something better we could all be doing. Always. I mean, always there's something better. And I don't mean it in the sense that, like, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that I do think there's a very fine line, and paying attention to it is kind of...
Would you say procrastination is a negative connotation or a positive?
It depends on what I'm procrastinating.
I've never heard procrastination in a positive
I'd say
light.
negative. That's a negative
So
connotation.
I guess what I'm trying to do is...
But I've heard escape in a positive light. I've heard avoidance in a positive light. And I've heard both of them in negative. I've heard both of them in negative lights too.
Oof.
I avoided a crash. That's positive. I avoided death. That's a positive light.
All right.
Yeah, see?
We're talking about a psychological avoid...
Semantics. No. I win.
No one loves someone more than when they use semantics to win an argument.
I've won the argument.
It's like getting off on a technicality when you murder someone.
I am the Elon Musks of arguments now.
goes to avoiding an accident.
Well, no, but
I run headlong into accidents.
Yes.
So
I win every time.
I'm talking about avoiding things that you know you need to do. And every one of us, including ourselves, have done that. We know someone, or we know ourselves well enough to know that we've avoided and procrastinated and put things off to the side. So what do you do to fill that time, to make yourself, instead of feeling guilty about avoidance, you fill your time with something that's escaped?
I get that, but it's also in the sense of like, okay, well, say someone is struggling with X or has a problem with X. You can use the same thing to avoid that problem that is potentially something that is purely within your own head, if that makes sense, or an outlier situation you can't control within your own life that is out of your control.
We'll talk about
so the avoidance can kind of be, you know what I'm saying? Like,
so if you have a challenge, you want to avoid it instead of take it.
If you're in a bad household, video games help you avoid whatever that problem is. You get what I'm saying? I'm not like I'm not trying to make it only
there's
that.
There's always fine lines to these things.
Yeah.
You know me better than anybody. You're wearing a black shirt. I would wear a gray one, or in this case, a green one.
This one is actually gray black.
Is it gray black?
It's actually the name.
It's not charcoal. It's
charcoal black.
This is the most pretentious part of the episode.
Yes. We have one every time.
That's right.
You get what I'm saying, though. Like, I'm not trying to I'm not saying that it's like
it's all in your definition of things. I know that words are just symbols for meanings. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Profound enough for you?
Deep.
Or do you want to avoid talking about it?
I would actually prefer to escape that conversation.
Well, here's the thing: people may play video games not just to avoid or escape. They may be turning to video games because they actually want to experience something that they're not able to in real life. And that can mean like experiencing different cultures or visiting exotic locations or even engaging in activities that may be illegal, dangerous, or impossible. Let's go on a happy note first.
That's not avoidance. That's like...
Yes, let's go on a happy note first.
Yeah,
I immediately...
That's a whole different thing right there.
I immediately think of Just Cause.
What's that?
That
game that was really good until it wasn't.
In that game, you're basically on this island that I don't think is real, but I don't even remember where it is.
It's not real.
Haven't played in a long time.
Yeah.
However, you can like hijack a Porsche and drive it off a cliff.
It's like Grand Theft Auto.
And then, okay, maybe that was a better example than Just Cause.
I mean, Just Cause is like the same version, except in Just Cause, you're a good guy saving a country from a dictatorship. In Grand Theft Auto, you're just a criminal.
Yeah, so you can go like hang gliding off a jet. Doing it in real life is something I don't anticipate doing. Well, same with like being Nathan Drake. I can't really hop from the ancient building in the middle of the Himalayas to the next one. In my personal life, I don't anticipate that happening, but I can instead play as Nathan Drake and do it in one of the Uncharted games. The second one, which is the best one, by the way.
What?
The second one is the best one.
No.
Yes. What do you think the best one is?
The newest one.
Oh, the fourth one, A Thief's End. Pretty good. I'm a big fan
that
of
one
Naughty
is
Dog games.
Obviously the best one.
Okay, well, how does
Raw Dog and Chucklefish and isn't that the name of dog? Isn't that the name of the guy that? What did I say? No. I have no idea what I said wrong. Isn't that the name of the people
ConcernedApe, Chucklefish, and Naughty Dog.
That's what I said.
You said Raw Dog.
Well, I thought that's what you said.
No. We are not. I need to bleep that entire thing out.
He's a naughty dog.
Crap. Oh my! No, stop! Stop!
Trust me,
Just stop!
You don't know what that means.
Just stop!
It's okay.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Your boomer is showing.
Stop. Yep. Oh my god!
That was very raunchy. What you just said.
Very, very fun. Yeah,
naughty dogs.
Nope. Stop. We're not going to talk about naughty dogs.
It's
boomer.
naughty dogs.
Stop it. Stop. Okay. I know you know what that means.
I do not know.
Well, I'll tell you later. That was hilarious.
Okay.
That was very,
Naughty
very
Dog.
funny.
Naughty Dog is the name of the video game production company that made Uncharted, The Last of Us 2.
They made
and
The
I
Last
can
of
see
Us.
why
They
the
made
ape
Last
was
of
so
Us.
The Last
concerned
of Us,
about
the
it.
first one.
Oh my god! Just the puns
I
are not
can
going to
see
save
why
you.
the ape was concerned
puns
about
won't-
Naughty Dog.
Oh my god!
Bottom line, I'm trying to say is like shooting RPGs. We'll get into this. Well, you'd hope most people playing them aren't going to do that in real life, right?
There are
Most of them
RPGs.
don't.
Most of them don't.
Role playing games.
Oh.
Role playing games.
Yes.
With non-player content.
NPC. Okay,
Not
God, I
yet,
thought you were going
yeah.
back to the
No,
whole thing.
NPCs. NPCs, yes.
Basically, with a role playing game, it's like World of Warcraft. You pick.
What
Like,
do you mean by shooting art?
so it's like Call of
So
Duty. You
like
ever see that?
Call of Duty, Halo, these are games where you're
shooting games.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like filming a game.
No,
I'm like,
no. Those
No,
will.
no,
Yeah,
no.
I don't
Okay,
think those. I
I
don't
am
think there's
so
filming simulator
freaking
2023.
I can't believe
You're
all
not
of a
even. You're observing this world from a passing spaceship.
Wow.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Video games can also serve as a type of social escapism. So for some people, it's a way to actually interact with others in a safe and controlled environment. Multiplayer games, for example, they can allow players to form communities that maybe they don't have in their real life and friendships. And they may be beneficial for those who feel isolated in their everyday life. And, you know, that can also turn into something crazy. But for the most part, I think it's a positive.
part, it
thing.
This is
doesn't.
all about safety and control. I can hijack, as you said, hijack a plane or ride a Porsche.
No,
off
but
in
I
the
mean,
sunset.
like, you can actually meet people when
Yeah.
you play online, and you can meet people
You
in
can
other
also meet
countries.
people in your neighborhood.
Oh.
No.
Wait.
No.
You don't? You can't?
We don't like the HOA.
No,
Okay.
you can.
Oh, jeez.
You can. But I'm just saying, for some people, maybe like you were saying earlier, Wolf, maybe they are in an environment where they are unsafe with, maybe there's a situation with family members or their house, or maybe they live in an area that's not quite safe and they're able to meet people, of course, in real life too. But it's just a new age way to form
The bull
relationships.
has always said that when he looks at his phone, if he turns it off, it's a paperweight. But when it's not turned off, it's a tool.
That's right.
And
A video
the
game
same
can be a
can be
tool.
said in this instance, depending on what you're
I
playing.
would agree with you entirely. I just don't understand the rules of this tool.
Well,
That's what I'm
let us-
saying.
The rules
let us-
are very blurred.
Well, it seems to me that a lot of the efforts around these tools that you're talking about are, for lack of a better way to put it, avoidance. They're capturing someone's ability to risk without risking,
Well, that
which is
depends.
interesting to me because I like that. I mean, I go back to Star Trek, watching old Star Trek days, or not Star Trek, yeah, Star Trek, where they had the quote unquote holodeck. I don't
Yeah.
know if you remember that. That was a long time
No,
ago.
I do,
Basically,
yeah,
you walk
it was
into a
in the newest
room and it
ones,
was
yeah.
it was the next.
And they zapped him down.
No, you didn't zap anybody down. That's
Oh.
the transporter.
Sorry.
Get your technologies correct.
Sorry, yeah.
You've already had the flip phone a million times. Come
Hey,
back
you
again.
confused Naughty Dog with something else. You can give me a little bit of grace with the holodeck.
I still don't understand.
Yeah, we'll talk about it post recording.
video games can also be used as a form
That
of
can't be my new moniker.
No. I mean, it could be. It'd be really freaking funny, but no.
I can guess pretty well.
Yeah, kind of.
But the
hilarious.
holodeck, you walked. It was basically a virtual reality. Yeah, I mean, you were walking into a whole new world. That's what we're talking about here. But it's in its infancy still. Correct?
Kind of. I
Sometimes.
don't think. Yeah, sometimes it depends on what you're playing. Like a lot of it isn't in its infancy. I mean, some of it's been around for a decade. I mean, when it comes to like distinguishing between like technology, as we both have discussed, has not yet hit that event horizon of being indistinguishable. It's getting very close, especially with like the recent what was it? The Matrix. They released this game based around the Matrix that was around a whole new like system of technology development system that was
scary.
Very good. So I mean, it's getting there, but that, like, communication wise, I don't think, like, I get what you're getting at, the avoidance thing, and I think a lot of people use it that way, but I also think it's also a medium that transfers into, like, if you're far away from a friend, you can utilize that to spend time with that person, or if you're trying to, per Baewolf's example, meet new people, you can also do that. And they also have real life meetings. Like, they don't, like, most of the time, like, they meet up. So it's a in between to walking out to your local coffee shop. Like, you can go to the game, meet someone who's on a username, meet that person at the coffee shop, and then you're friends in real life and in the game.
Some could even consider it networking. Like,
Kind
truly,
of, yeah.
truly,
In
like,
an
they can
interesting
build
way.
social followings through, like, streaming.
It's a
We'll talk
company
about
now.
that too.
Yeah, it's a whole company thing. Yeah.
But it's also a form of emotional escapism for a lot of people. They cope with their negative emotions such as anxiety, depression, boredom.
Being in the business world and the business life, doing business.
Think of it. This could be something like you talked about. You grew up on a farm, and you can understand maybe the attractiveness of playing a game
The
where you
nostalgic
harvest.
nature of it.
The nostalgic nature, but also take it a step further. Maybe being able to plant something and wait 30 in-game days for it to harvest, and then you get tokens. It's not, quote, real, but maybe someone can feel a sense of accomplishment if they're living a pretty, quote, mundane
Isn't that
life.
part of the thing, though, Bale? That the tokens and the events that you go through on here actually are beginning to have certain values.
Now, yeah.
To some people, yeah.
I mean, that's
In a lot of
that's
places.
really kind of where you go with blockchain and crypto and things like that, because a token in a game, if used in a game with other players, now has an exchange value, which is what money is anyway.
But again, value.
That's all money.
That's always kind of been it's always kind of been the case. I mean, you could say that with, like, paintings. Like, value is determined based on the person.
But I'm talking about within this game.
No,
construct.
I just think that the construct, like, real life instances are now transferring in a lot of ways.
To my point, it's like it's
I'm
a
just kind of
separate.
providing, like, like, you're the Bill Belichick, I'm the Tom Brady. I'm providing a supportive assistance here.
Hope you're Tom
believe
Brady
that
from a
he's
few years
saying-
ago and not last weekend.
You're Bill Belichick.
That's a
Watching
quarterback.
football, another form of escapism.
Yes.
But let's talk about maladaptive escapism. This is the negative framework around escapism, if we're going to actually take it from a way that's detrimental to your life. Okay. Maladaptive escapism refers to the excessive use of escapism, particularly when it interferes with one's ability to function in everyday life. So in the context of playing video games, this would mean spending excessive amounts of time playing to the point where it's negatively impacting your relationships, your work, your school life, your personal responsibilities of basically any kind. And that could mean isolating yourself from your friends and family, sacrificing sleep, sacrificing exercise, not getting, outside and getting, vitamin D, failing to maintain a healthy work-life balance, and eventually leading to what would be a definition of addiction, knowing and recognizing that something is detrimental to these aspects of your life and just not being able to stop.
Do you think that escape rooms have really dived into this? Because
I've never been to one.
I would consider my experience maladaptive, because at a certain point, if we didn't get help, we were going to be there for a long time. To be stuck in the room, it was going to impact our personal life. It was going to prevent us from working. The addiction of trying to figure out the escape room game would have become a prominent part of our life.
So somebody had to throw you an Easter egg, right? Is that the term? To get out of that room?
Yeah, I guess. Hey, if you need help, just say help. And that's what we did. Yeah, we got to this point where
Wait, really? You didn't get out without help?
they give us a few hints.
So then that goes to these games as well, because there are long play games, and I find them very instructive in terms of habit forming, some good things. Computers in general are creating simulations for things that you might do in real life to extend your abilities through this universe, this new universe, into the real world.
Like, for example, if I wanted to get the skull key to open up the skull cavern, I had to get really, really good at mining or foraging or catching fish.
Or you had to know their cheat codes.
Not in every game.
Sometimes.
I don't know. I bet
there's
you
cheat codes.
Well, here's the
Not
cheat
anymore.
code. You can go online. How did Mr. Beast become a giant?
Well, he's part beast, so
Yeah, he's part beast, but he started out just playing video games online, right? And showing people how to do different things.
yeah.
Well,
Isn't that cheating?
well, here's the thing. It's
Kind of. It's not really like what you were talking about cheat code wise. Like, from a definitional standpoint, is kind of like getting phased out of games without punishment now, which is really a big bummer.
Here's the thing. Games now integrate cheat codes on purpose. Like,
or they don't. They remove them entirely.
But those are a different kind of Easter egg, right?
Well, yeah, you could qualify it.
Like, for example, if back to our beloved Red Dead Redemption, if you do cheat codes in that game, they don't allow you to have it with your saved game. It'll mess up the entire thing. So you have to save and then do the cheat code, and then you can go back to the normal game. So it's kind of like
restricts the wideness of your world, really.
Kind of, yes.
Kind of like real life.
I believe it's Red Dead. Is it Red Dead?
Red Dead Redemption 2. It
allows you to do them, but you can't have them.
You'll never find the Appaloosa.
The horse.
Yeah.
No, it was the Persian.
It's an Arabian
horse,
horse that I've been searching for.
She hasn't
caught
got it.
I haven't gotten it. I still haven't gotten it. I know we talked about that months ago at this point. On that same note, it's important to say here that those who, quote, excessively play video games aren't necessarily engaging in maladaptive escapism. It's a question of context, this whole thing. I mean, it really depends on if it's having a negative disruption in your life. Because consider, you're talking about Mr. Beast. So consider all of these streamers, like people who play competitively or stream on Twitch or YouTube. That's a lucrative career option in today's day and age. While it may be somewhat saturated, but so is podcasting.
They've turned that into a business.
Exactly. And
I get it.
It's cool that people are able to do what they love and actually make money doing it, especially when it comes to video games. But it's considered like a sport at this point.
Yeah, it is.
There's actual teams globally that do competitive gaming, and it's really intense.
They make a lot of money.
Really intense. Why do video games have specifically a bad rep in this regard?
Can I guess?
TV's been around since whenever.
I think that's the reason.
I don't think so.
Because they're affiliated with the same kind of
I think
TV.
the reason it has such a bad rep is because a large subset of society has not been immersed in it as much as another subset. So people tend to make things that they don't fully integrate or understand, not to say they can't conceptually understand, but fully integrate with as a negative or have a negative connotation. Well, so it's like with baseball and football and competitive gaming. It's all kind of the same. One involves you potentially having life-altering injuries forever, and you make millions of dollars for it, and people should understand that. With that being said, the other one can also involve life-altering issues like eye stuff and back stuff and other stuff that I'm sure we don't ever talk about. And I think the reason people make it derogatory is because they haven't had enough experience with it, and that's understandable. In 15, 20 years, there'll be something else like competitive seahorse racing.
I think the problem for people in my generation that look at this stuff and give it and I know I'm playing a little bit hyperbole here with all this stuff and trying to play devil's advocate a bit. I understand gaming. I used to play games when I was at university. I played, The Legend of Zelda, the first Legend of Zelda ever.
So good.
And
such a good game.
It was awesome. And there were several different other games I can't remember the names of, but I remember having my graph paper out and being on these, little green monsters running around these islands looking for caves to explore 10 levels and kill. Whatever they were, they were instructive to me in certain ways of how to puzzle solve in a lot of ways.
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Solve.
So let me ask you your opinion on this. If you were to look at gaming now, do you think it's been wrangled into a position where it's almost no longer fun for some people in the same way it was 30, 40 years ago?
I would say there's probably tiers to that. And it goes back to what Wolf was saying a little while ago. There's the four chord games.
Yeah.
That they got a formula inside of these that they're doing on purpose because they know they'll make X amount of dollars on this stuff. And I understand that from a marketing standpoint, but there's a human desire to rubberneck, if you will. And so if you see an ambulance going by, typically most human beings go, whoa, what's happening? And their mind goes off in that direction. So now you can get immersed in a world where you can participate in every ugly aspect but potentially in life that you ever wanted to discover what it was like and have no repercussions or no evident repercussions. And that's a very attractive thing. but it also seems to me, from my standpoint, a very negative thing. Now, the nature of some games that have a longer term goaling kind of thing, like the Stardew thing you're talking about, and there was a game that came out, is it called Myst? I think this was years and years and years ago. That had this whole problem-solving direction. It could go off in different ways, and those things have become very, very popular. But they're also not the most popular. The most popular are the ones where you can be the local drug dealer and steal the Porsche and ride around town and shoot up people arbitrarily and things like that. That's what I don't like.
I mean, technically, you're actually a cowboy who's a criminal. So you don't get in the car, you get on the horse.
That's your choice.
I know. I know what you're getting at. I think, I guess my question is, because we talk about like perspectives and like positions and observations and how it's relative to you. And I would say, like, from a gaming perspective, it's kind of like what I would look at, like what the government tried to do with prohibition, right? Like they got rid of alcohol for a period of time, thinking that it would be negative on society, or they wanted to tax certain things and yada, yada, yada. There's a whole thing there. Clearly, I am not an expert on it. With that being said, I feel like gaming may have necessitated some sort of, I don't want to say like innate human desire, but definitely like a cultural desire to do those type of things, which I don't know if that's good or bad.
I don't think it's only that. I think part of human nature, and I know we're broad stroking a lot of things here, but part of human nature is to gravitate toward things we're not supposed to do. Things that might be negative for us, it might be positive, but somebody in our life or some group in our life or some belief system in our life has told us those are the wrong things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you say you can't drink anymore in the United States. What does everybody immediately do?
Bootlegging. And creating alcohol that could kill you,
Correct. But history should have taught that lesson. We do that all the time with things. We make these abrupt changes. There's things happening right now that are very abrupt that are going to have the same negative effect down the line. I can kind of ensure people that those kind of things will happen. Just using your conclusion on the prohibition thing, that happened overnight. If I was an alcohol manufacturer at the time, I'd have been bummed for about 3 seconds and then realized, holy crap, let's weather this storm and we're going to be so rich by the time this is done that we'll get sons in the president's seat.
Well,
hot bee.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like I think that like games kind of have, in a roundabout way, done that for a lot of things, because it's like there's something I was listening to or reading or watching, one of those three, that which is kind of almost all the things. I might have been
hearing it or smelling it.
Yeah, I could have been tasting it. But they were talking about how like a certain subset of society, I think, it was a certain subset of society, like 10 million or so young men are not working. They're just not working. And historically, that has always been shown to indicate that there is some level of unrest within society. It was what's the guy with 30 jobs? How is that even
true?
The was it Mike Rowe?
Say we have.
Well, okay, you're being facetious. I got you. I don't know. Who knows? But no, what he's saying is like it's not for lack of jobs. So my perspective is like, okay, well, if that's the case, obviously they're doing something with their time. They could be businessing like me, or they could be gaming. And I don't think there's anything wrong with gaming.
Or those damn boomer parents of theirs are taking care of them like they shouldn't be.
Maybe. But I guess my question is like, I think that there's got to be like this instance of like positive and negative associated with both. So the negative aspect of prohibition is you stop everything and people get pissed because they don't have beer, so they start bootlegging. And then the negative there is that they could kill themselves with distillery, not know what they're doing, or start criminal activity. But then you legalize it again, and the alternative is the positive. The people are happy, but then they could kill themselves driving cars, and it could become the leading cause of death in all of the country because of that, in part. So I guess with gaming, it's kind of the same thing. You have a bunch of people who like doing things that they'll never arguably ever do in real life. Like, I really hope I don't have to fight slime monsters in real life. But then you also have people doing that because they want to do those things in real life, but they otherwise wouldn't do them because they're playing the game instead of actually doing that. Does that make sense? In a weird kind of way. Like two sides of a coin there.
It is. I mean, that's the old theory of if you let a sociopath play games and take up all their time killing people in the games, that they won't go outside and kill somebody for
or it's like, well, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that like there's a positive, there is that, but there's also like the positive aspect of like, I think recently, like last year, some kid, I can't remember his name, he like got really good at F1 racing in a video game. So I mean, like there's
an
a
aspect
whole
of that.
level, a big aspect.
Think about our world now. See, one of the first games that came out on, because games were originally, there was a console thing, really crappy things like Pong and things like that we've talked about, or arcades you could go and play Asteroids and things like that. But for the most part, games were on the first computers. They were very simplistic games. As they got better, that I remember Flight Simulator was like one of the first major things everybody attacked.
I have the recent one.
Yes, he
you
does.
should see it.
I can imagine.
So wait a sec. I need to tell you this because it'll blow your mind. The entire game is based entirely off of and supported by Google Maps.
Would be incredible.
You can fly from San Diego to Hong Kong, and it will take real world hours.
Here's the interesting thing about that. Okay, original flight simulators, you would get in there and you'd get better at your skills of doing this, and this. And if you sat back and analyzed that a while, up to what you're talking about for today's game, if you call it that, it is a simulator.
It's
a practicing tool.
Yeah.
It's what frickin' NASA used for astronauts.
Look,
it's the same kind of
the
stuff.
first thing I did.
How do you think you fly drones now? How do you think the military flies drones?
Yeah, good point.
By remote control and by probably a bunch of gamers.
Look, I'm not saying that this is maybe the case, but the first thing I did is I got in a Cessna. Okay, I can't remember what model it was. I got in a Cessna and I flew. I flew at 3 a.m. I tried flying from like some rinky-dink small airport that had too short of a runway in Alaska across over to Russia. And I failed miserably, but I will tell you that it was so realistic that if you swerve up and down too crazily, you'll damage your plane and it'll restart you. Like you have to and I had it on easy mode.
And honestly, I love this technology. I think it's incredible. I think where we're going, I can't even imagine how realistic it's actually going to be. And I love the idea in a lot of ways, because there are places I've wanted to go and things I've wanted to do that I will never be able to do in my lifetime. Partly because of my age, partly because of just not being able to, you want to go, we're going to have enough video and realistic simulations of the moon and of Mars in the not too distant future, where if you got in a virtual game of some kind, you could be there. I love that idea. I mean, I sit and stare at the frickin' Apple TV things that go by sometime and go, wow.
Oh, the screensavers.
Yeah. I get close enough to think I'm in, Soaring, California.
He would love No Man's Sky.
I love that stuff. Absolutely love that stuff. So I understand it. And I understand that it's more than just an escapism, but I understand also that our world it's driven by marketing. And when that happens, you're going to have these layers of these games that are just going to have this huge negative impact. This, as you said, this
maladaptive addiction.
Yeah, this
escapism.
This addiction. And there are going to be people that will turn that addiction into multi-billion-dollar contracts with YouTube, like Mr. Beast, or there are going to be people that turn it into a reason to eat 14 bags of Lay's potato chips a day.
I think
and everything in between.
I'm a 15 bag guy, but anyway.
15 bags of Lay's potato chips?
Exactly 15.
That's dinner tonight. No, I mean, everything you guys said, ditto. But also, I do think that the cultural aspect around video games is more positive today than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, for sure. I mean, side note, I just got to shout out The Last of Us on HBO. Just the fact that they were able to transform a video game I really loved into a good show, at least in episode one.
One episode. You got to give it time to breathe.
I mean, just think they've tried to make adaptations, movies, TV shows of video games in the past, and they almost always fail.
Every single one has failed
so badly, and it always feels like the people writing just hate the video game or something. It just always feels so bad. And so the first time ever, I'm very pleasantly surprised, but there's still time for things to go wrong, so I won't get too ahead of myself. But video games have had a bad reputation, at least generally, since at least from my perspective, the 90s. And that's due to several factors. The portrayal of violence in games has led to concerns about the effects of violent video games on children and other young people. The graphic nature of some games has less concerns about what will happen to certain age groups that are playing these games. And there's a whenever there's a lack of regulation or oversight over anything, people, what's the word? Grab their pearls.
Clutch
their pearls. Thank you. I was going to say clutch. I'm like, clutch isn't a word. Clutch their pearls.
Wow, that is such an old saying.
Well, and think about the idea of video games going into arcades and bowling alleys and having this connotation of being like gambling. I mean, you play Mario Kart, and if you close your eyes, you're inside a casino, because that's exactly what Mario Kart sounds like.
And why do you think it sounds like that?
Because the people making the game, in this case Nintendo, understand that there is a psychological addiction type thing. So 100% there. But when I think of this negative connotation towards violent video games, the first thing that comes to my mind is the controversy surrounding the aftermath of Columbine. And for those who aren't familiar, I'm going to ruin your day real fast in the most basic of terms. April 20th, 1999.
Let's keep it basic.
Yeah. 2 high school students, who I won't be naming, committed mass murder in their high school.
Yeah.
Terrible. Awful. And after the incident, people started attempting to blame this whole tragedy on the video games that these 2 individuals played. And that whole belief regarding video games being based on the idea of violent video games leading to violent behavior in real life really doesn't have much legs when it comes to scientific research. It just doesn't.
There's not much.
Committing any act of real life violence, I mean, these 2 people had mental health issues, and there was bullying involved. And again, I'm not going to go into the depths of that, but if you want to attribute it to anything, it's much more likely that played at least a much stronger factor than any sort of playing video games. But the whole idea that we started this whole episode that Stardew Valley was the addiction, right? And that's a very simple, charming game. The most violence in that game is you are slaying what's the equivalent of jelly beans bouncing around a mine. All right, that's the violence in that video game.
They're people too. Okay,
but just for contextual purposes, personally, I am a fan of violent video games. I feel like that's like admitting some sort of cardinal sin.
Dare you?
No, but I mean, I enjoy playing Joel Miller in Last of Us, killing 1,000 people in a zombie apocalypse.
I enjoy playing Kratos and ripping apart a lava monster, literally ripping apart a lava monster human hybrid.
I mean, Nathan Drake is a straight up serial killer.
He really is.
Uncharted games. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of their games, but I would like to think that doesn't imply I don't like killing bugs in real life. So drawing that correlation that people who play these types of games are much more likely to commit violent crimes.
Predisposition. Psychologically of the people playing the games.
There's just this, it's almost like, I think of immediately this like satanic panic, right? In the 80s. It's that same sort of, or the witch hunts in Salem. It's obviously advancing and changing with the times, but there's that same just like, or the Red Scare. There's just this universal fear, right? That's taking hold. I feel like that's died down a lot in the last 10 years.
Don't you think there's a component though? As small as it might be, there's a component of being anesthetized against, not against, but anesthetized against the idea that violence is...
You mean desensitized?
Desensitized and anesthetized, both. Desensitized is a better word for what I'm trying to convey. You don't accept or want violence.
No.
But if you see it all, it's like anything else. If you see it all the time or participate in it in this tangential way, that it's just kind of normalized. It's kind of just part of life. I think about this in terms of gangland violence, for instance. South side of Chicago, parts of LA, parts of all kinds of places in the world, where the whole idea of trying to gin up youth against whoever the enemy might be, whether it's another gang, another country, another whatever, is to try to get the youth to be desensitized against the idea of violence being anything but normal. That's
think
that's
there's
kind of where
very- I
I'm going.
think
I'm
it-
not blaming it on a game.
No,
but I'm just saying.
I think
it's-
there's very low levels of that when it comes to video games, primarily because right now, as I said earlier, the event horizon hasn't yet occurred. When it does and things get indistinguishable, then I'll probably be more on board with that. But right now, it's very, very clear differences. It's kind of like, well, here's the
You say
thing. You can
that.
well, you can say that about TV too. You can say that about it's not. It's much more realistic.
TV was okay. You had, especially when cable came out, you had all these channels. And the whole way to keep your kid off the channel was to block the channel.
Yeah, but you can still do that with games. Like,
Well, I know you can.
You can.
But our world is a lot different as far as adults and their kids now. One of the things they use video games is the way they used to use TV.
Yeah, but I don't.
Babysitter.
But again, I don't think. I think most of that comes from not necessarily the game itself. Because look, that's the problem I have. Because I do have a problem with this. Because it's there goes my shoe. I have a problem with this because people utilize this as like an out of sight, out of mind argument for the things that they choose to ignore. So we can talk about like video games till we're blue in the face, but no one ever brings that up with violent movies that I've seen multiple kids. I'm not saying you, I'm saying like most of society. Like they don't bring it like what was that movie that we went to recently where this family of like 6 came in and it was
Had their little kid
definitely not a movie for children.
But
No,
see, that's
What was that
think
movie?
about
how can you
Marvel.
argue against
Where's
that?
Marvel?
Marvel movies.
Marvel, they wipe out half the universe.
Yeah.
Right?
Violent.
And I know this to be a part of the equation because I've lived long enough and had kids through a long enough period of time to watch the change on going from normal cable television to streaming and what became kind of normal to sit and watch while your family was around.
Yeah, but you'd have
difference.
to take into consideration that even though that thing has become more normal, technically, historically, we are at the greatest level of peace worldwide than we have ever had.
I'm not arguing that this translates into just giant wars or anything.
I'm not saying that either.
What I'm
saying,
arguing is the desensitization.
well, but I'm
I
saying that if
have-
that's the case, then you would assume that people, and not across the board, in a lot of ways, would become less caring and less involved about things that have technically, for much of society, been marginalized.
I think people are less caring and
I don't
less
think so.
involved.
I don't think so.
There's
I
a
think they are.
specific example, in my opinion. The Last of Us, I've mentioned it 100 times in this episode already. It's a game I really enjoy. There's 2 games. So there's Last of Us 1, there's Last of Us Part 2. And in Part 2, without going too far into it, the creator of the game made a point to force the person playing the game to consider the perspective of the enemies that you've spent the first half of the game murdering violently. Again, this game takes place in the future during zombie apocalypse. Okay. So and one of the reasons that this game is so beloved, at least the first one, is because the storyline is pretty incredible. Now, that game got a lot of flack because of that. It got a lot of flack because it forced, whether you loved it or not, or you hated it, it forced the person playing to put themselves in a position where they didn't feel good about half the game. At least that was sort of the general consensus I saw online. People may feel differently. That's fine. But it put you in a perspective where suddenly killing every NPC in the game it hurt. They actually made a point in the game to where they would actually name the people you were killing. So like there'd be a group of people and you're supposed to stealth through this field or something and kill everyone. And then they made you start killing dogs that were trying to attack you. And they would name the dogs like Bunny and stuff like that. And it was it was a really heart-wrenching thing that the game makers, again, whether you loved it or hated it,
vindictively put in there.
I'm just saying that they were humanizing the opposition, which is something that a lot of video games don't do, which I think goes hand in hand with what you were saying earlier, that maybe desensitize. And that one made it very sensitive, and a lot of people didn't like it, which tells me that maybe that's not quite how people are feeling about games. They didn't want to feel
I guess my point is I think people tend to, because I don't agree with the premise that video games have desensitized people. What I agree with is that video games might have played a part into introducing people to the ideas that have further led them to being desensitized to certain things. The game itself is much like alcohol or much like a phone. You put it down. It is just that. It's not going to force you to play it. And there have been games where I've been like, okay, this is a little too much for me. I'm never going to play this game. I mean, there are games out there. So I guess my whole thing is these cultural issues that we might have of desensitized issues, I think they come from the failure of certain cultural institutions as opposed to just the creation of a game. And yeah, there might be a correlation, but that doesn't mean there's a causation. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying, and like a lot of things we talk about, there's a lot of gray in this. But I would point out something else that gives you pause. You know, creators, they have a lot of motivations. One of them that you just mentioned with version number 2 of The Last of Us was to create a sense of understanding from multiple sides of a battle or a engagement or a world, which I think is a great thing. You need to understand why people and why your enemy even does the things that they do. And hopefully that would lead to a more peaceful existence, not slaughtering each other off all the time, but something a little more basic than that. I had a programmer working on something a few years ago, and I got talking to him a lot about some of the other things he was programming. And one of the things he had been spending several years programming and putting online were minor games on particular websites specific to the pharmaceutical industry. And basically what they were trying to do is make more fun for the youth to get on these sites, to engage with these sites that were run by somebody that was some corporation that was trying to get you to buy their medicines, right? And get your parents to buy their medicines. So they were, I want to say gamatizing, but there's another word for that.
Gamifying?
Gamatizing. They were gamifying the situation on purpose with a specific desire behind it. So the creator, this guy that I was talking to in this case, his directive was to get those websites more sticky because they knew that would turn into more dollars for that pharmaceutical company. You can say that's good or bad. It might have been the greatest thing in the world, but my point is still the same. There are agendas behind and in back of these stuff, driven typically by profit motive, that may have other things involved.
Which I think is
and the government
true
gets
for
involved
everything.
in regulating these things, in directing these things for whatever reasons they have.
Yeah, but I think a lot of I think that's true for almost everything. So I guess my whole position on this is, do I think there's an impact? Yes, a minor one. I just don't think that it's to the extent of, I guess, like if you talk about like inoculation, like from a gaming perspective, or desensitizing is probably a better word. From a gaming perspective, from like the age of 2 to like 18, if a child at 2 years old is playing like, what's it, like Doom. If they're playing Doom, which is about killing demons in the most violent possible way, I could see that maybe having a major effect. But how many kids, it's not a lot, do that? And the ones that do, where do they get the thing from? They can't go into the store and buy it because you have to be 17. You can't, there's literal things that they have to go through. And it's the same with a myriad of other issues in society that I don't necessarily think are good. I think there's a lot of aspects that are negative, but I don't necessarily think it directly impacts to the degree that people make the argument of. It's almost all or nothing.
I hear what you're saying,
you know?
but over time, this is a creep, right? It's just like the movie industry. They have a rating system. Gaming industry has a rating system, and for mature or whatever.
Peggy
whatever
18.
The hell that means.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But the M changes. There's a board that decides what those things are, just like there's a board that decides what's an R movie, what's a PG, what's a G, whatever. Today's R movies, frick, they were X-rated when I was young. Truly.
I mean, from my experience, the M has kind of stayed consistent for a long period of time. I mean, there was a game that was called Going Postal, and you could do whatever that implies, and now it's an adult-only game, AO. So, I mean, and that used to be M.
So, I think how do people play these games?
Like the rated M games?
How do they play them if they're kids?
Well, you'd have to get them from like an adult.
Right,
so, but obviously downloading online. But again, you have to have someone's credit card information. But again, I don't think like. But again, I think that's the slippery slope argument, and there's truth to it, but not always in the way that people think there is. Because here's the thing: if you're if you're in a family that is a loving family and you're playing Grand Theft Auto, you're probably less likely to want to go slap somebody from any demographic. But if you're in a family that shows that in real life as well as in Grand Theft Auto, your odds go up. You get what I'm saying?
You're kind of making an odd comparative, though, because I was just going to say this really comes down to the family and in oversight for your children and all those kinds of things. And I'm not perfect in any stretch of the imagination on that. But there's Grand Theft Auto is a good example. I've never played it in my life. Don't know. Heard about it. Heard it was the worst thing ever created by man in existence and under heaven. And now it's probably considered a very innocuous game in comparison to others. Correct. Yeah. But at one time it was controversial for all the newscasters and all the pundits out there. But that was it changes. This is my point. It changes,
and that's also cherry picking too. Like the news media organizations.
Well, they cherry pick everything. But that's not my point. But kids play it all the time now, right? Yeah. Loving family or not loving family, they play it all the time.
But it doesn't mean they're more likely to go rob a bank.
Well,
it doesn't mean they're less likely to.
Video games,
it could be,
are an extremely popular.
This goes back to the thing we were talking about before with the serial killer.
Well, here's the thing: is I do think. Wait a sec. This is important. I do think that they could also potentially push towards less likely, because it's like if you do think, and I don't know how relevant or true this is, and I don't agree, because if you're doing something, like if you do something simulated, it is potentially could be less likely that you actually do it in real life.
Okay, let me ask you something. Why do you do anything simulated?
That doesn't mean
for the experience, correct?
That doesn't mean that you want to do it in real life. I didn't
say you want to.
But that implies that. The question implies
is you're investigating what it makes you feel like.
Or it just seems really cool to fly a plane up to the top of the map and then jump out of the plane. You're not really feeling anything. You're watching the graphics.
Okay, you're always taking things to the extreme.
Yeah, but I'm painting a picture of what I normally do in games that are open world. I do that because I want to see how high you can get. But
you like to break a game. That's what you told me. I've
because
heard you
it's
say
funny.
That.
It's hilarious.
That's great.
Yeah.
So your drive to break that game is to humor yourself doing it,
or to find some sort of almost engineering-like aspect of how far the game can go until it fails.
Okay, so that's your driver. Mm-hmm. Okay, but what I'm saying is, if you have I can use the argument in the other direction. If you have a game that simulates shooting people, mm-hmm. you're trying to discuss as a kid. You're discovering, how does that make me feel? Does that make me feel worse or better? Does it desensitize me to that? Do you think I'm good with guns? Should I have to practice? There's all kinds of things that go on. I mean, look,
but that's the
children
argument.
are just big chemical imbalances. That's all they are.
That's the argument that people, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that's the argument that people then utilize to do things like restrict the Second Amendment. I mean, I'm not saying
nothing to do with the Second Amendment.
No, I'm saying that's the argument people utilize. Well, if you buy a gun, well, what is the real intent? I mean, I don't think that that's the case. I think people end up doing something because it's entertaining and fun. I think that there's a line where it's like, yes, if I get a game that is strictly about shooting one person and then is so graphically intriguing that it's like, you get what I'm saying? I think there's that line of disbelief, that suspended disbelief that I think people can recognize from an intellectual standpoint. If you're 5, obviously you can't. But most people who play those games are not 5.
Well, I'm saying is that human beings are impressionable, emotional beings.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying that we should, and you know me, I'm anti-regulation to the max anyway. So part of what I'm talking about here is I don't know the answer or the line to draw on these things. Yeah. All I'm saying is there is a line to be drawn. Yeah. And that line should be drawn by the family.
I agree.
And if the family is a loving family and they promote sitting around playing Grand Theft Auto with their kids, they're insane. That's too much, man. But let's all get together and have a family fun night.
But again,
Grand Theft Auto.
This comes from this is what I'm getting at. Is it's you can like look for a prime example is like my family and I. Like my dad and I played Call of Duty. That's a video game specifically about shooting other people who are opting as players in a different soldier-like aspect. Like, I don't think that necessitates unhealthiness. I think it's what you take away from that game. If you introduce it to, if you introduce to a 5-year-old, obviously that's a problem. But if, for example, there's a game called Grounded, it's about being shrunken down into a little small person, and you have to be around giant bugs and spiders that could kill you, and they're very scary. They have a setting in that game that makes them into friendly blobs that don't look like spiders for people who have arachnophobia. I mean, there are limits, and my point being is that not that I don't think that it's not that I think people should do that. I'm saying that I think there's like a line of like, if I have a 15-year-old kid and they buy Grand Theft Auto, I don't really have a problem with that because I grew up with that, and I'm not going out and robbing people. You get my point?
No.
How don't you get my point?
Is that game specified? I mean, can 15-year-old kids go buy that?
No, but can 15-year-old kids walk into a rated R movie? I mean, it's all up to the parent, right?
This is my point.
But again, that doesn't necessitate that it's a bad relationship if that's the case.
I didn't say it's a bad relationship. I said insane, probably using too much of the wrong word there, but I'm saying it's the wrong direction. It's like saying, hey, son, you're not 13 anymore. You're turning into you're an actual teen now. You're not 12, you're 13. Let's go see some boobs. Let's go to
but that's extreme.
I approach this whole thing as an adult, not kids. I wouldn't want my 15-year-old playing Grand Theft Auto.
Look, obviously we're talking about Grand Theft Auto, but at the same time, I grew up playing that, and it's totally fine. Like, I don't have this instance of, well, I've got to go and rob
that's
people.
Great, and I'm not saying it's
I'm
that
not
way
saying
for everybody.
you do, but I'm saying that there's this inference that only a small amount of people come out of that unscathed. I don't think that's the case. I think a 95+% of people, 98 maybe, come out of it totally normal.
I'm not inferring that everybody becomes a
I don't
serial
think you are
killer when
either.
they watch
No,
it.
I don't think you are.
I'm just saying that there's a version of regulation.
Sure.
That is there for a real reason. It always goes overboard is my second point. But there's a reason that they say you must be 18 before you do X or 21 before you do Y.
There's also inconsistencies there too.
There's always inconsistencies. I'm not arguing inconsistencies. I'm arguing what's pragmatic.
But it depends on
so
if your
family sits around and says, it has a big conversation about what's real and what's not, and let's go down this road, and I'm going to allow you to do this and that, whatever that this and that is, Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, whatever, then we're going to have a general understanding. And if I see tendencies that are going the wrong way, then I'm going to change my mind on this decision we're making as a family. Okay, that's one thing, but that's such a rare conversation.
Of course, and I'm not saying that I'm definitely not saying it happens every time. I guess my whole point is it's kind of like the same people who created these rules are the same people that create arbitrary, inconsistent laws that we don't follow and that they didn't follow when they were kids. So when I look at their whole situation, I'm like, you're just creating rules for yourself that you then fell into at that age, thinking everyone will do the same thing as you, which is a little hypocritical because it creates this helicopter life that most people live in. We can't have this experience or this idea because it's going to be too dangerous. And then people are helicoptered until their mid-30s, still living where they shouldn't be. And all the types of thoughts and victim mentality that we struggle with today comes from that type of helicopter parenting. I'm not saying allowing kids to play GTA is the answer. I'm saying there's like a swinging pendulum. It's either you let your kids see and do everything, or you don't let them do anything, and they still become crazy.
I get what you're saying, and I think maybe the better way for me to illustrate this would be when I was a kid, there were no cell phones or anything like that out, and my brother or my sister, we'd just take off. It's Friday, we're going to be gone. We'll call you from a friend's house where we're sleeping over or whatever. We're going to go do what we want to do. Now, in our brains, whatever our parents had inculcated in us that was good and bad was in our brains. So what they're hoping, without being able to connect with us, without being a helicopter over us, was they were hoping that those things made an impact of some kind, and our decision making was going to go in a direction that was closer to what they thought than just wild ass carefree play. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. And there was plenty of things that we did as youth and investigated that we probably should have stayed away from. And some of those things ended up on things we enjoyed doing, and some of them did not. And so that's to your point. To my point is if you don't have any standard at all to put inside the brains of these individuals, then they have no context on which they're making their decisions.
Which I agree with.
So if you have free for all on anything you want to watch anytime, any game you want to play, anything, without supervision of some kind or without at least instruction of some kind, then you're going to have more worse decisions than better decisions from my perspective. Okay?
Which I could, yes, I agree with a lot of that. I just think that now it's not that it's almost to the point where you don't really have many decisions, which creates the alternative problem. You have someone who's afraid of taking risks. You have someone who is easily swayed in a way of large groups doing the same thing. When we talk about desensitization, being desensitized, I don't think society's been desensitized. I think society has been almost culled in a way where everyone just kind of goes around with the groupthink because that's how they've been taught. We can talk about people being desensitized to things, but the reality from statistics is that we are in the most peaceful time of all history. That could change. It really could change very quickly. Doesn't mean that people at any other time were less altruistic. I don't think that that's been the case. I don't think that this last segment of people, including mine, is the best possible existing version of humanity. In fact, I would argue we have a lot of issues. At the same time, it doesn't mean all the other versions of humanity are any less or more quote unquote civilized than we are. It's just different forms of that. Does that make sense? I'm not making the argument of like everything's the same. I'm making the argument of, I just feel like there was a period of time, specifically in America, where it's almost as if everyone just decided to shut the door on experiencing life. And that's why we have the problems we have today, because we're afraid of things that naturally always happen.
We're so far off the path now. I get the importance of this. I really do. And you said we weren't going to be so serious, but
yeah,
we always veer back into this. Exactly. But just as kind of a final thought on this, I'm not trying to instruct anybody. No. It's up to the individual and the families to decide to do what they want to do. But I think that our world has, at least the cocoon we live in here, especially in the United States, where we can discuss and think about all these things and play Stardew or play Grand Theft Auto or Last of Us or anything else in the peacefulness of our overall world at this time is shaped more by the fact that the need to exist itself is not as broad as it used to be. People were all about at one time, hey, I'm going to survive so you don't get to. That's why they had wars. That's why they went after all these different things. It was survival. And we're not currently in that mode. A lot of people in the world are, so I'm not discounting that. But it's not the same as it used to be. I know we went down you said we were going to go down a dark hole, and you brought all this whole.
She referenced a 1990s event, and we just went down straight down.
I don't have much of a good segue into the rest. It's just
let's just jump back into. We're going to jump back into Stardew Valley.
Video games are a super popular form of entertainment. No, I guess there is a way to segment it. You talked a lot about children, but the reality is that it's mostly adults who are playing video games. Well, at least from a 2019 survey by the Entertainment Software Association, 65% of American adults play video games as of 2019, and 72% of those play with others, whether online or in person.
See, that's where the big differentiator is to me. I don't connect with that. Yeah. That was something of my youth and not something of my adulthood.
Well, I think it's just specifying.
That's just me, though.
Yeah, and I also think it's just a different form of what you went through as a younger adult. I mean, video games now are like another variant of going out to the bar or to a party.
Well, can you not say like these little games that we play on our phones? Like maybe not ones like, I'm not even talking about like first person shooters. I'm talking about dots. Yeah. Or even something like Wardle or whatever the heck it's called.
He has no idea what we're talking about. It's
in my phone.
Words
is
why are you here?
Or a different type of. That's right.
I think that the global gaming industry is at minimum $150 billion right now. At minimum, I mean, people are consuming video games as a form of leisure and as a career. So. I personally don't see video games as a problem on its face. If you dive into the crevices like you guys just did, you can find problems and correlations and all this stuff. But I think people tend to take things to the next level in every facet of life. And anything you can think of can become a problem. It can become a detriment. For example, I like working out. I like to
Same.
generally make choices for my diet that aren't falling to every whim I have for a cheeseburger and a pizza, because I do enjoy both. However, I know that can be taken to a psychologically detrimental, physically detrimental thing on the face of being a healthy choice, like always. I mean, regarding food and exercise, you can say that you can turn it into a crippling addiction to the gym, or you're starting to utilize substances that are, cross-canceling any sort of decision that's, quote, healthy for you. I mean, that can be the same for video games. So if you look at anything in your life, and if you look at video games and you say, oh, this is detrimental, this is causing negative things in my life, playing these video games, that's fine, that's you. I'm not a professional that knows your situation and can give you any advice pertinent to your situation on that. However, I know you talked about it with Jordan on the podcast when it came to food and diet and exercise. You can say the same thing psychologically for video games.
I guess the question I have for a lot of it is just, what would be the alternative? Because people make this argument for everything. If we didn't have jobs, we'd become more artsy, and the world would be a utopia. And my question is, for like, when it comes to the topic of video games, there is an alternative question. If those didn't exist, what would society be like? Would we be more productive? Would we be more violent? Would we be less violent? There were instances in history where I would argue we'd probably be a lot more violent, because we watched people kill each other for entertainment.
What about video games during the Crusades?
Yeah.
Do you think they could have just handled all their differences in a World of Warcraft?
I think there's an argument in a lot of ways, to the Bull's point, where yes, there is a huge negative facet where it can desensitize you to things. There's also an argument where it can open you up to being more accepting of things that we should be. Well, I'm not saying I guess there's a line. There is a line. I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying that there's a coin to all these things. And to your point, it's moderation.
Well, let's talk about some of the positives of video games then, because we've certainly hammered on about the negatives, because you can find them. You don't have to go far to look. You can
find them in anything.
But let's talk about some of the pros to playing video games, because there are some. Okay, you can improve your cognitive skills. You can solve puzzles in video games, strategize, make quick decisions that affect the rest of your gameplay. My first thing I can think of, Red Dead Redemption 2, you have a whole decision-making perspective you have to take of everything you do in the game, because it affects, you're playing as a convict and a criminal, but you're also supposed to be the good criminal or the bad criminal, and you can make decisions throughout the whole game that can affect certain aspects of it. Perhaps they help you enhance your social skills. That is something video games could do. Maybe you're someone who doesn't get out that much, and I know we talked about going out and meeting people. Yeah, some people, maybe they work all day and this is a way for them, like I said, to network. They meet people later on through that. Or, that one size fits all just doesn't work in their life. And maybe video games reduce stress. Yeah. Like we talked about, sometimes after a stressful day. And, we're in a position right now where we don't have anyone else to take care of except ourselves. So I understand that there's different...
It's hard enough, okay?
I understand, like with kids and pets and all the things, this can be something that you can't really do every day, but maybe video games are a way for you to unwind that way. Like you could compare it to sitting down and watching your favorite movie or reading your favorite book. And video games have also been shown to be effective in terms of helping some people with their mental health, with PTSD issues or depression. Or if you want to take it, a lot of people love those little games they play on their phone where like the little colorful stones fall. I don't know.
Bejeweled.
I can't. Right. Any of these games, a lot of people say that helps them with anxiety the same way a stress ball would. And they're also making decisions the whole time. It all depends on the person, of course. There's all context here. And even, I'm going to bring up my favorite of all time. Video games can help you physically. If you look at the Wii in particular, Wii Just Dance. I know Wii is basically dead. Nintendo's Wii system has, I think, been pulled, basically.
No, they did a new one for the Switch.
Okay, cool. Well,
they did it was like last year they did one.
I have never gotten a better workout than doing the Just Dance game for Rasputin.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of things that are good about games too, and they all simulate something you want to do, or you should do, or you might do, or cognitively you need, or psychologically you need. I know, your mom plays a words game, whatever it's called, And,
Words with friends, I think.
Yeah, but she's so much better with her vocabulary.
Her descriptors.
I mean,
Her spelling. We love you.
she's way
She's
better.
now
than
she's speaking in Old English now.
I
exactly.
just think the bottom line with all this, because you could take all those pros I just listed and flip them on the head and say the same thing for the con. The bottom line is balance with all of this, as with most things in life.
Balance is everything.
Balance.
Well, and I think that's where to our conversation, Bull, I think there will be like a significant shift quite shortly on where that line of like impact really comes in. Because right now, I still believe like the disbelief and technology, suspended disbelief, all that stuff is so. It's such a great leap right now that you can look at certain games that would be considered violent and be like, it's not. It is, but it's not. There are lines, like I said, there's lines, but I think there will be a point quite soon, like within the next 5 years, where because I was looking, there's been games I've seen, I've showed Baewolf over there that I'm like, I can't tell. It's gotten very good, and now they're still like there's still that leap, but the jump has gotten to be much shorter to what Moore's law, the argument there.
I think the jump is more than just how good the video is or the audio. The jump needs to be perspective.
Well, that's where first person and augmented reality comes in.
Yeah, that's where the big difference is going to be.
Well, and really to each their own at this point. I mean, if you're someone who really thinks this is a problem in your life or could be, don't play them.
Just go touch some grass.
I know I played one of those games where you put the VR headset on, and it was a horror
Not that
game.
one. Put your head at the grass. It would be that too.
It was so scary, and I never want to do that again.
Resident Evil 7.
That was detrimental to my life and health
I
and
think I was there
mental
when you did
memories.
that.
I will never do it again.
Well, and here's the
that's
thing.
Just me.
And I think a lot of people, I think there is a large subset of society that's like that. I think that there will be a point in time where people will be like, no, it's too much for me, because it exists that way already. Most people drink Coors Light or Bud Light. They don't go and drink absinthe. Okay. So I think there's going to be lines of like differentiation. There will be some people who just male parts to the wall, because I can't swear. I do any game, and there will be that point. But I think I don't know. I think human senses, we really can only take so much, at least right now. We might evolve in short order. That could happen. But I think, to your point, I played that game too. It's much easier to play when it's not on your face. And there's a joke in there somewhere. But yeah, that's kind of my perspective. Is I feel like there's that line, and I think it'll stay there for a bit until, to your point, we start living in it.
What's that Steven Spielberg movie?
Ready Player One.
There we go. Just wait.
Yeah, we'll be there. It'll happen in all of our lifetimes.
Mm-hmm. Haven't you seen Meta? That place is rocking.
Well, I'm not talking. I know you're talking. Meta is the start, but I think there really will be a point where it's going to be almost kind of alarming.
All buy NFTs, and Sam Bankman-Fried's accountant will be there giving us tax advice. It'll be great.
Well, I thought she was the cop. She looks just like that cop that was in the news.
No. You don't understand.
She looks just like her.
No, their accountant was actually in the metaverse. You didn't
God.
know that?
Well, I was making another joke,
real?
but that's...
The address for their accountant was in the metaverse. Wow. For real.
Well, forgot about that.
Or for not real.
And technically real, you can buy property.
Dropping.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot to talk about. I mean, I think we'll have more to talk about as time goes on. I think with Unreal Engine, was it Unreal Engine 5? As was the engine I was talking about. Showed the graphics from the Matrix. That's
gotcha.
the newest graphical one of them. And I think that as things progress, we'll have more to talk about on this. But yeah, that's our episode on Stardew Valley and
Stardew Valley was
Escapism
the appetizer, and then
Bull and I got into this really deep conversation.
And kids being disturbed by first person shooters was
for the record,
that was horrible.
When we have a 15-year-old, they're not going to play Grand Theft Auto.
Thank you.
Unless I'm playing Grand Theft Auto.
His wife looked at him with
I'll play Grand Theft Auto. And they'll be like, what are you playing? And I'll be like, leave the room.
We're going to be playing Stardew Valley. That's what our game night's going to be.
Right. It's a FTX Simulator
We used to
2037.
break out the Wii. That's what we did.
Yeah.
We did the
Played
Wii
ping
and then
pong and jumped from cloud to cloud.
I have
I
a
got so good
visceral,
at ping
a
pong in
visceral
that game.
memory of
Bowling.
playing PlayStation, the first one, the gray
Frogger.
one.
Frogger, baby.
I found
That's right.
someone on YouTube had recorded the entire thing all the way through,
run
passing
through, yeah.
every single level, including like the ones that I couldn't do as a kid, and it made me so happy. I was like, oh. Nostalgia.
Well, hopefully that gives our viewers and listeners some insight into Stardew Valley specifically. Don't pay attention to any of the other stuff we talked about. And hopefully they join us in Stardew Valley in the online game to grow our farm. I know it's an outdated game, and eventually we'll be talking about Haunted Chocolatier, but I'm a nerd and I'm going to talk about Stardew Valley for right now. With that being said, if you liked our content, you can find some of our videos, not all of them, but some clips of videos on our Instagram at The Wolf and Bowl. And you can also find our content on YouTube, especially if you're watching. I did not ask earlier for a subscription. If you like the content, please go ahead and subscribe. The button's going to be right down there. And go ahead and turn on that little notification. We have audio episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and all the other podcasts come out on Thursdays. And then the video comes out normally on Fridays.
Love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out, guys.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate you. We will see you next week.
Bye.